working on it. Can you tell we've got new art and new music, and we're trying to add some different elements. But sometimes it's okay to go with old reliable and a staple that we've had for years, that I've had for years, that you've all gotten used to, and dress it up and bring it back. And that's where we are with Ask Amy Anything. And when I look back, and we've been doing this show for years, because I do like to really sink into and invest in a particular job. And I don't like to hop around as much anymore. So this is a new adventure. I want to be the best at it, which might take some time. But when I look back, I will know that we started Ask Amy Anything week number 1. So I see there are actually a few of your questions in the live chat. We've also got various social media sites that Zach has been perusing. Just to remind you, I'm not the one who picks the questions. The questions come from producer Zach as he's seeing what you've submitted. So we are ready to go. The voice god is ready.
My bad.
Oh, there you are.
Here we go. I'm here. There we go. I've been moving things around and doing it, but we are ready to go now. So the first one I found was actually on Facebook from Jeff, who wanted to know, what is the most controversial opinion that you have expressed on air, and what feedback did you get afterwards?
Goodness. The most controversial opinion. Well, it's not a more recent one, but I would say going back to so a couple of ones, one that blew up in my face and one that I feel very validated about. I remember when LeBron James was in Miami and he was about to make decision number 2. So remember, he left Cleveland, he went to Miami, they won the 2 rings there. And when he was getting ready to make his decision, I went on the air and was 100% certain. I said it for months. He's not going back to Cleveland. He's not going back to Cleveland. He's not going back to Cleveland. And of course, I put it out there on social media. I think I was probably a bit snarky when people would come at me with, oh, what do you think about LeBron going back to Cleveland? Well, I definitely had one of those old takes exposed for anybody who follows that Twitter account. I had to eat my words there because I was wrong. And as it turned out, he went back to Cleveland and he won a championship. And people kept reminding me of that from Cleveland for years, that I was so wrong that LeBron would not turn around and go back to Cleveland after having left 4 years before him. So that was one that blew up in my face. And I guess in retrospect, I learned that it should be always qualified as, this is my opinion. I don't believe he should go back to Cleveland. And here's why. I was wrong. Another one that, and again, I feel much more validated now because the industry has grown so much when it comes to women. But I remember going back in my career, so early in my tenure at CBS Sports Radio, but going back to my days at ESPN Radio when I was the only regular female host and was talking about women talking football and the fact that there needed to be more women in sports talk. So for me, it was radio. Now, of course, it's both video and audio. And I remember writing a blog post in response to a San Francisco radio host, and he and I are friends now, so it's not like I hold a grudge, but he had gone on his show and talked about essentially how women don't belong in the sandbox, that women should get out of covering sports. They don't belong on the playground or in the sandbox with men covering football and covering men's sports. And I pushed back on that, and I wrote, actually, maybe I'll share it on social media because it's funny to think about it now, how much the industry has changed. But I wrote a blog post called My Sandbox in all capital letters with the my, just to emphasize the fact that I belonged here too. And I had fought to that point in my career. And I would say still, there are times where I know that I'm swimming upstream as a female. Now, there are a lot more women who are on TV talking sports, a lot more women who are covering teams as beat reporters or insiders. We see women, NFL Network is replete with some very accomplished and talented and smart and attractive women. And so it's much more common now. But still, I would say that sports talk radio and sports talk in general are much more male dominated, more of a vast wasteland, if you will, when it comes to women. And so I do look back on that and the fact that I had to fight for my piece of the pie, if you will, and I had to fight for my credibility. I no longer worry about that. I will tell you, though, there's one thing that I still struggle with being on camera every day, Zach, and that's for years. I wanted my career, I fought being on TV, and I fought, putting too much out there on social media with me doing videos, that kind of thing, because I never wanted it to be about what I looked like. My motto is role model, not supermodel. I wanted it to be more, my career to be more about my knowledge and my ability to share that, to speak, to connect, and of course to entertain. So this is definitely still an adjustment for me. But yeah, I feel very validated looking back that those controversial opinions about women belonging in the sports broadcasting industry and being part of covering the NFL or covering Major League Baseball. And I've been in locker rooms, I've been in clubhouses. I know that it's still predominantly men and that that's their space, but we belong there just as much as men do. And it's not so controversial anymore.
No, I think that's a great take, and glad to see how obviously it's expanded and transformed with the way we cover sports. Another one that's less sports that I do have for you that's gonna tickle the movie fancy for you, hopefully. What is your pick for Best Picture at the next Oscars?
Huh. Can I say Spider-Man? Okay, so I don't know whether or not it will win any Oscars, though I do think that some of the visual effects and the technical aspects, the editing, which those are Oscar categories, that those can be part of it as well. My husband and I really loved the new Spider-Man movie, and we loved seeing it in IMAX. I'm trying to think what else we've seen. You know what? We went and we saw Young Washington in theaters, and I thought that one was terrific as well. I have no idea if these will come up for Best Picture. Probably not. It doesn't it always seem to happen. And I don't know if there's anybody else out there that would agree to this, but it feels like the movies that I really love are never up for Oscars. And the ones that I've never seen or I really don't appeal to me, those are the ones that end up winning Best Picture. So I don't know if I've got popular choices, but I thought Young Washington was definitely worth seeing in the theaters. It told a part of George Washington's story that I'd not heard before, and apparently it's really accurate. So I did look and research that. But also, why not Spider-Man? Anytime you've got a dude who's flying between buildings and taking the kind of pounding that he did, and the editing, and the all the different components that come into putting together an action movie like that and making it so seamless, I feel like there should be an Oscar in Spider-Man's future.
There could be for the effects. I feel like they give away like effects.
Yes, special effects, visual effects. Yes.
Exactly. So it could
or
be
music.
An Oscar winner. Exactly. Another one we got on the Facebook page from Eileen. If the WNBA was around after you played college, would you have liked to continue playing?
Well, because the WNBA is in fact celebrating year 30, it absolutely was around when I was playing college ball. I'm not that old, Eileen. But I'll take you back to a moment where I had to make a choice, and here's the choice that I made at the time. So I had known from 16 years old that what I wanted to do, my dream job, was to do NBA play-by-play. And I had to get started. And part of the challenge for a lot of students or young people who have radio and TV dreams is, how do you practice? How do you get reps? How do you get noticed? Well, I went from my undergrad at Messiah College, where I played college basketball, and then I went to Syracuse to get my master's. And there was an opportunity. I still had a year of eligibility. Not my fifth year, but actually my fourth year. I still had a year of eligibility, and I was tempted. I worked out with some of the Syracuse women's team. I would practice. I played pickup with them in the off season, and I got to know some of the members of the team at Syracuse. And I was so tempted to play, even if it was a walk-on spot and not a scholarship, though a scholarship would have been helpful because Syracuse education, that master's degree, was not cheap. But I came to this point, and I remember I wrestled with this, but I had to make a choice. Do I want to keep playing as much as I love playing? And I still sometimes miss it. Though golf kind of fills that whole competitive drive that I have, also running half marathons. So at least I've found some other ways to feed that competitive athletic gene that I have. But I had to choose, do I want to jumpstart my play-by-play career here? Because an opportunity came up. Instead of playing, I could do play-by-play with the campus radio station for the women's team. And so I started doing that. I sat in the stands a few times and I did some audition tapes. And then the program director of that station gave me an opportunity to call games. Those were my very first reels, my very first tapes that I ever had of me doing play by play. And I used those to get jobs. And so, as much as I miss playing, as much as I enjoyed every bit of being a college athlete and even going back to high school and participating in 5 sports, I understand a little bit of why athletes have a hard time letting go and moving to the next phase of their lives, because I really missed it. I lamented it. But I understood that there was an opportunity for me to get some exposure as a play by play announcer and also get a usable reel that I could then share to potential employers. And it actually helped me get a job, as I said. So I don't regret that decision. But yeah, it would have been fun to see whether or not there was a little more basketball in me, because I loved that game and I really enjoyed the team aspect above all else.
No, I completely get that.
How old does she
Another
think
one
I
we
am?
I don't know. Like that's what I
Just
was
kidding.
thinking too.
I'm
Well, I was
joking.
doing I was doing the math as I was thinking. I was like, I don't think Amy's that old, but I'll just go ahead and ask
That
it anyway.
old. I like it. I don't think
Why
Amy's
didn't
that old.
Okay, well, I'm gonna ask another question before I say anything else. Jamie asked, and Sherry actually responded on Facebook to. He asked, "Will Matt and the Musher be on this year?" And we had him on last week. You can check that out on our
Yeah.
YouTube channel. But he
Thank you.
also asked, "How's producer Jay?"
That is a great question. Producer Jay and I haven't connected since I left New Jersey. The last I knew about Jay, he was doing well. He was in a great relationship with a girl that he really loves. And he also was starting a brand new job. And it took Jay quite a while to find a job after leaving the overnight routine and leaving CBS Sports Radio. So the last I knew, he was doing really well. I will say that I've had him on my mind a bunch just as we start this new show, because he was always so into video and YouTube. It was really his baby. So I do need to reach out to him and send him some of the clips that he can laugh out loud. Like, for instance, when the dog threw up in the middle of our debut show. So I like I said, haven't talked to him in a year, but a year ago he was doing really well, and of course, still having fits of consternation over his beloved Mets and also his Giants. But I can imagine, maybe I'll reach out to him when the season starts. I can imagine he's over the moon about John Harbaugh taking over as the head coach of the Giants. Those are his two teams, and always would crush his soul. He was also a Nets fan, so not a Knicks fan. So I can imagine seeing the Knicks win the NBA championship gave him fits too.
Two quick ones we have from the chat here that I can see, and this one's just really short for me. When you talked about the options for us with Dolly Parton about how you could potentially sing, and you said no. Ron asked, I cannot sing either, so I'll just add that in. It would be even worse. But the other question that we'll get to, and we've talked about it before, but we see your husband's painting on the wall. They want to ask if they can see yours again.
Nice. Okay, so I will make this promise because, and I'd mentioned this on yesterday's show, our young social media director, her name is Andrea, she's encouraging me to do other videos that don't come from clips of the show. So on our Instagram and TikTok, as we rebuild it, it's short videos. I always go back to what my niece Lauren said to me. TikTok is YouTube, only shorter videos, so you don't have to watch as long. Oh, okay. That sounds like doom scrolling to me, Laura. Anyway, it's much more of the short, digestible clips. And so Andrea has said to me, we need some behind the scenes video, short clips that I can put together and throw up on social media that kind of show you getting ready for the show, what your studio is like, maybe a little bit with your dogs, and how I have to kick them out of the studio every morning as we get ready to start. So I will promise you that before the end of the week, there will be a video that includes my version of that same painting. So that is my husband's painting, and he did a great job. Mine is supposed to look like that one. We were painting the same seascape, so it's supposed to look like that one. It doesn't. Our flowers are very different. Our beach is different as well. But I will show you that. So we'll say that's a way that you have to go and use our social. It's a way to drive traffic to our social because it will only be there on social media. But yes, by Friday, we'll have a behind the scenes look at what happens as I'm getting ready for the show, but also maybe explaining some of what's here on the shelf because I know you can see what's back there. And some of you have asked about my Gracie Award and also my pictures of Penny. But because of the camera focusing on me, a lot of that is blurry. And so I actually do want to take you on a tour of the shelf that's here in studio. So, yes, it's coming. Just a little bit at a time, Zach, because I feel like 2 hours a day on video is a lot for me and it's what I can handle right now. So I will try to work in a little more so that it's not just show stuff. It's also what happens here in this magic room where we get ready for the show.
I like it. I'll be excited to see all that too. Another one that I wanted to pull from our Facebook page from Art.
Okay.
And I thought this was a very interesting question. Should schools and professional leagues teach their players to be role models, or is it only job or is their only job just to be athletes?
And remind me how he said the question. He said schools, right?
Should schools and professional leagues teach their players to be role
leagues.
models, or is the only job here to be the athlete?
Well, I don't believe that's a policy that could be universally implemented. There's no way the NFL, while it does have a behavioral clause in its bylaws as well as in all the contracts that athletes sign, I'm just using the NFL, but the NBA's got one, the NHL's got one. A lot of these contracts that athletes sign do have a behavioral clause where if they violate it, and sometimes it's even outlined, whether it's illegal drugs, whether it's, getting arrested, whatever it happens to be, these behavioral clauses will actually kick in if an athlete gets in trouble. And in some cases, the contract can be voided or money can be withheld from that athlete. But I don't think that you can stipulate a morality clause, if you will. Now, if it's about just your behavior, embarrassing your team or causing undue distraction, headlines for all the wrong reasons. Well, yeah, there are employers who can say, hey, you're not worth it. I'm going to fire you based on this behavior. But to try to mandate morality through one particular lens and say, here's how you need to act, here's how you need to comport yourself, here's how you need to be a role model to those who are coming up behind you. I don't think that's possible because, to be honest, if I ask you what it means to be a role model, you're going to have one definition that may vary from my definition. And so much of that goes back to our values and our morals and our standards and maybe how we were taught, how we weren't taught, how we grew up, what our parents were like or our family life was like. But I think for me, as much as I love college sports and as much as I'm having a hard time with them becoming more like the pros, I do think that there's more of the teachable moments at that level, whether you're talking about high school or college. Very often those coaches, while they may not always be father figures or moms who step in, they can often have such a huge impact on the development of their athletes. So whether it's a coach who cares more about you as a human and training you to be a future, man or woman that can keep a good job and be a good parent or spouse. I mean, I love that at the college level, often you have relationships between coaches and athletes that are much more parental at times, or that can be, a special friend or a guide or someone who really taught much more about life than he or she did about the particular sport. I feel like once you get to the pros, that's a job. And if those athletes choose to have charitable organizations and give back, or if they choose to, use their platform in a way that impacts people. So I'll just use Caitlin Clark as an example, even Steph Curry, because I was talking about both of them on Tuesday's show. They each choose, and they're only two examples. There are many examples. They each choose to stop and take pictures and sign autographs and to try to give this special moment to a fan of theirs because they know it can really make such a huge difference. The way that they try to interact with fans, I think, is really special. Again, these are just two examples. You see it in every sport. Guys and gals who will take time to sign autographs, pose for pictures, who will throw their equipment into the stands after. I worked in tennis for years, and I would see this a lot with the athletes as they were walking off the court. Those moments can have such a huge impact on a fan. Those interactions are ones that fans, whether adults or kids, may remember for years. So whether an athlete chooses to use his or her platform for good, or to impact people for good, or to connect with people, their money, how do you use that? That's really up to those professional athletes. I don't think that should be mandated. I don't think you should have to tell a pro athlete, or should be able to tell a man or woman who's making money with his or her skills, that they need to be role models. But I think at the college level, or even the high school level, where as young people, you're still learning how to navigate this big bad world, and you're still learning about the impact that you can have. I'll go back to early in my career, one quick moment, and it really stuck with me. So I determined that I needed to respond differently in those moments where a young person, sometimes an adult, would ask me for an autograph. And because of my own insecurities and not seeing myself as a celebrity or someone famous, oh my gosh, those I break out in hives with those terms. But I laughed the first time it ever happened. A young kid at a college basketball, or excuse me, high school basketball tournament at the big house in Oklahoma. So this goes back to my mid 20s. A kid came up to me because he had listened to me on the radio call basketball games, and he asked me for my autograph, and I laughed. And another older, wiser broadcaster said to me, "What's the big deal? Just do it." That kid may remember that moment forever. And so I did, at that time, turn around and say, "Hey, yeah, I'll give you an autograph." And, I'll do that for other people who ask me, even though I don't understand why you would want my autograph. But I think if we take responsibility and understand what those moments of interaction and those quick connections can do and what they can mean for other people, yeah, there are teachable moments. Sportsmanship, caring more about people than you do about winning or losing. Those are all lessons that can be taught in high school and college, and I think then can be carried on to the pros. But I don't think you can mandate morality, and I don't think you can define it in a way that applies